It was a humid June evening in 2023, and I, Emily Thompson, sat in my cramped Brooklyn apartment staring at the loan documents spread across my kitchen table. My hands trembled as I signed my name, mortgaging my beat up Honda and this tiny one bedroom, my only assets, for a staggering $3 million. The weight of that number pressed against my chest like a stone. But I wasn't doing this for me. I was doing it for Ethan Parker, my boyfriend of 3 years, whose tech startup in Manhattan was teetering on the edge of collapse. His company, Parker Innovations, was his dream, and I'd poured my heart into making it ours. I pictured us standing side by side at the IPO, clinking champagne flutes, maybe even planning a wedding. That dream kept me awake at night, fueled my every move. I wired the funds to the bank, believing I was saving our future. The next morning, my phone buzzed with notifications. I opened Instagram expecting to see Ethan's usual posts about coding breakthroughs or team meetings. Instead, my screen lit up with a photo of him, all dimples and designer sunglasses, his arm around Sophia Bennett, his 22-year-old secretary. The caption read, "Big news, excited to share my engagement to the love of my life, Sophia. Here's to forever." My stomach lurched. The comments were a flood of heart emojis and congratulations from strangers, coworkers, and mutual friends. Not one mentioned me. I scrolled through, my vision blurring, searching for some sign it was a prank. But there it was, Sophia's smug smile, her manicured hand flashing a diamond ring. I'd been erased from his life in a single post. I threw on a jacket and raced to Manhattan, my heart pounding louder than the subway rattling beneath me. Ethan's office was on the 20th floor of a sleek midtown tower, all glass and ambition. I needed answers. Had he been planning this all along? Was I just a means to an end? The questions burned as I stepped into the humid night air, cutting through an alley to avoid the crowded streets. That's when I heard them low, slurred voices behind me. 3 muggers reeking of cheap whiskey blocked my path. "Hand over the bag, sweetheart," one sneered, his knife glinting under a flickering street lamp. I clutched my purse, my only weapon, and swung it at the closest one. My defiance was a mistake. They lunged, shoving me toward a rusted stairwell. My foot caught on a step and I fell tumbling down concrete stairs. Pain exploded in my skull as I hit the ground. The world faded to black. My body left crumpled in that filthy alley, exposed to the elements, abandoned. In that final moment, as my consciousness slipped away, I saw flashes of my life with Ethan. I'd met him in 2020 when he was a scrappy coder with big dreams and a bigger ego. I was 25, fresh out of NYU, scraping by as a freelance consultant. Growing up in a crumbling Queens orphanage had taught me to fight for every scrap of stability, and Ethan seemed like my ticket to a real family. I funded his lifestyle, $500 sneakers dinners at Le Bernardin while I wore thrift store jeans and ate ramen. When his startup hit a cash crunch, I worked 80-hour weeks, pitching to investors, closing deals, and building his empire. That 3mm loan was my final devotion, collateralized with everything I owned. And yet there he was, planning his honeymoon with Sophia while my corpse rotted in that alley unnoticed for days. 5 days later, a homeless man found me swollen and soaked by rain. Word reached Ethan through a mutual contact. I hovered, a bitter specter, watching him arrive at the scene. His face showed no grief, just a faint smirk. "What a shame," he said, his voice cold as the pavement. He turned to Sophia, her arm looped through his, and whispered about their Maldives getaway. My soul churned with rage. I'd given him everything, money, time, and heart, and he'd discarded me like trash. I'd take that betrayal to my grave if this were the end. But here's where you come in, dear viewer. If this story of sacrifice and betrayal hits you as hard as it hit me, smash that like button to show you're with me on this journey. Drop a comment. Have you ever trusted someone who let you down? And if you want to see how I turn this pain into power, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. I woke with a gasp, my heart racing, the familiar hum of my Brooklyn apartment's radiator filling the silence. Sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds, and my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The date on the screen read June 15th, 2023, the day the 3M loan hit my bank account. I blinked, disoriented, my head throbbing with memories of that alley, the muggers, the cold concrete. I checked my banking app, $3,000 to $1,000, untouched, sitting in my account. My hands shook as I realized the impossible. I'd been reborn, given a second chance to rewrite my story. Ethan's voice broke through as my phone rang sharp and demanding. "Emily, where's the money? Parker Innovations needs it now." My stomach churned, not with fear but with clarity. In my past life, I'd wired every cent to him, saving his company only to be betrayed. Not this time. I sat on the edge of my bed, the loan documents still on the kitchen table, untouched since last night's signing. Memories flooded back 3 years of pouring myself into Ethan Parker, believing his promises of us. I'd grown up in that Queens orphanage, bullied and alone, dreaming of a family. Ethan, with his easy charm and big talk, had seemed like my salvation. I'd funded his designer wardrobe, his rooftop cocktail parties, while I wore the same $15 dress to my birthday dinner, only for him to humiliate me in front of servers at Per Se. "You look like you shopped at a thrift store," he'd snapped, storming out. I'd paid the $400 bill alone, tears falling, convincing myself his apologies meant love. I'd built his company 2 late nights networking, shaking hands with venture capitalists, closing deals he took credit for. That 3MR loan was my final sacrifice, and he'd repaid me with a ring on Sophia Bennett's finger. Now Ethan's voice barked through the phone, impatient, entitled, "The funds should have cleared by now, Emily. Don't screw this up." In my past life, I'd have begged for his forgiveness, wired the money, and prayed he'd stay. But the memory of my body in that alley, his smirk as he dismissed my death, lit a fire in me. I took a deep breath, my voice steady. "Get your own loan, Ethan." I hung up, my heart pounding with defiance. He called back instantly, but I silenced the ringer. I wasn't his ATM anymore. I paced the apartment, my mind racing. This rebirth, whether divine or some cosmic fluke, gave me power. The 3M was still mine, and I knew my past life, Ethan's company, was one bad deal from collapse, and Sophia, his ambitious secretary, was using him to climb the corporate ladder. I'd met her once at a company happy hour, her NYU diploma barely dry her eyes, calculating as she sized me up. She saw me as the naive girlfriend, the one funding Ethan's dreams while she positioned herself as his future. I wouldn't just walk away, I'd make them both pay. I called Lisa Nguyen, my college friend turned lawyer, who'd always warned me about Ethan. You okay?" She asked, her voice warm but concerned. I told her everything, not the rebirth, but the loan, Ethan's engagement, my resolve. "I need to protect this money," I said. Lisa didn't hesitate. "We'll put it in a trust untouchable by him. Meet me at my office in an hour." I grabbed my laptop, where I kept records of my small consulting firm, Thompson Solutions, which I started at 18 to survive after the orphanage. If I played my cards correctly, it had 20 employees, a solid reputation, and enough potential to rival Ethan's startup. As I entered the humid Brooklyn morning, my phone buzzed with Ethan's texts. "Why aren't you answering? Send the money, or we're done." I laughed, a bitter edge to it. Done, I'd been done the moment he chose Sophia. I headed to Lisa's office in Lower Manhattan, where the city's pulse matched mine. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. Thompson Solutions would be my weapon, and Ethan Parker would learn what it meant to cross me. The subway rattled beneath Brooklyn as I sat in Lisa Nguyen's Lower Manhattan office, the $3 million loan now safely locked in a trust. My laptop hummed with emails, but my mind drifted back to the life I'd lived before that alley took it away. Growing up in a Queens orphanage, I'd learned early that love was a luxury I couldn't afford. The crumbling walls, the constant bullying from older kids, the hollow ache of birthdays spent alone, they'd shaped me into someone who craved a family above all else. At 18, I'd clawed out juggling night classes at NYU and part-time gigs to start Thompson Solutions, my small consulting firm. By 2020, it had 20 employees and a reputation for getting things done. Then Ethan Parker walked into my life, all charm and ambition, promising the home I'd never had. I met him at a tech meetup in Williamsburg, his hazel eyes lighting up as he pitched his startup Parker Innovations. He was 27, a coder with big dreams, but only $2,000. I saw potential not just in his ideas, but in us. I started funding his lifestyle, $500 sneakers, rooftop cocktails, at the standard steak dinners at Peter Luger, while I lived on instant noodles and secondhand jeans. My firm's profits went to his rent car and ego. He'd say, "We're building a life, Emily." Successful people dress the part. I believed him, working 80-hour weeks to keep his startup afloat, pitching to investors, shaking hands at conferences, closing deals he'd parade as his own. I was so blinded by the idea of us that I didn't see the cost to my health savings and self-worth. The memory that stung most was my 27th birthday, a year before my death. I'd splurged on an emerald green $15 thrift store dress, the first new thing I'd bought for myself in years. I spent an hour curling my hair, excited for dinner with Ethan at Per Se, a Michelin-starred restaurant in Midtown. I thought he'd planned it to celebrate me, maybe even propose. But the moment I sat down, his smile twisted into a sneer. "You look like you shopped at a garage sale," he snapped loud enough for the servers to glance over. "I booked this place months ago and you showed up at that? You're embarrassing me." He stormed out before the appetizers arrived. I paid the $400 bill alone, tears streaming down my face, the judging eyes of the staff burning into me. Back home, I bought a $5 cupcake from a corner bodega and ate it alone, convincing myself his apology the next day. "I want you to look the part, babe," was love. That wasn't the only time. Ethan's temper flared whenever I didn't meet his image of success. He'd mock my cheap clothes, my small-time firm, even as I worked myself to exhaustion to fund his dreams. I'd collapse on my couch after 16-hour days, too tired to kick off my shoes while he partied with clients I'd secured. When his startup hit a cash crunch in 2023, I took out that $3 million loan, mortgaging my car and apartment, believing it would save us. Instead, it saved his company just in time for him to announce his engagement to Sophia Bennett, his secretary, on Instagram. The betrayal was a knife to the gut, sharper than the pain of that alley. I'd given him everything, and he'd left me to rot. Sitting in Lisa's office, I felt those memories like a weight. But this time, I wasn't the naive girl from the orphanage. I opened my laptop and pulled up Thompson Solutions' client list. My firm had survived because of my hustle, not Ethan's. I'd built connections with suppliers, investors, even a few loyal employees who'd stayed despite my focus on Ethan's company. Lisa leaned over, her sharp eyes scanning the screen. "You've got leverage, Em," she said. "Use it." She was right. Ethan thought he could bully me into handing over the $3 million, but I knew his startup's weak spots: over-leveraged deals, shaky contracts, a board that barely trusted him. I could outsmart him. But first, I needed to face the ghost of my past life, the one that died believing his lies. That girl was gone, and I was ready to fight for the woman I'd become. The Manhattan skyline glittered outside Lisa Nguyen's office as I finalized the trust for the $3 million loan. My phone buzzed relentlessly, Ethan's texts piling up like storm clouds. "Emily, the money's late. Parker Innovations is bleeding. Send it now, or we're done." His words were a familiar tactic, the same ones that had kept me tethered in my past life. Back then, I'd have panicked, wired the funds, begged for his forgiveness. But now, with the memory of my body crumpled in that alley, his threats felt hollow. I silenced my phone and turned to Lisa. "He's got nothing on me," I said, my voice steady. She grinned, sliding a contract across her desk. "Then let's make sure he never does." I left her office, the humid June air clinging to my skin as I walked through Lower Manhattan. Ethan's texts escalated. "Don't play games, Emily. I'll skip dinner tonight if you keep this up." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Dinner. In my past life, I'd clung to those empty promises, nights he'd reward me with a meal only to criticize my clothes or leave early for a client meeting. Now I saw through his manipulation. I texted back, cold and deliberate, "Get your own loan, Ethan." Then I blocked his number, my heart racing with a thrill I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't his puppet anymore. Back at my Brooklyn apartment, I called Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, who'd been helping me navigate the trauma of my past life. The nightmares hadn't stopped: flashes of the mugger's knives, the cold stairwell, Ethan's smirk as he dismissed my death. "You're carrying a lot, Emily," Dr. Chen said over the phone, her voice calm but firm. "Revenge might feel good, but it could trap you in that pain. What do you want beyond making him pay?" Her words stung, but I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. "I want my life back," I told her, "and he's not getting a cent of it." I opened my laptop and pulled up files for Thompson Solutions, my consulting firm. It started at 18 and was my lifeline after the orphanage, built on late nights and sheer grit. I'd neglected it for Ethan, funneling my profits into his startup while mine stagnated. Now it was my weapon. I had 20 employees, a loyal supplier named Marco, who'd worked with me for years, and a handful of clients who trusted my name over Ethan's. I called Marco, explaining I wanted to redirect a major software contract from Parker Innovations to my firm. "Ethan's company is over-leveraged," I said, keeping my tone professional. "Mine's stable." Marco hesitated, then agreed, citing our history. "You've always been straight with me, Emily. Let's do it." By evening, Ethan found a new number to call, from his voice dripping with frustration. "What's this about Emily?" The board's breathing down my neck. "Just transfer the money and I'll make it up to you." I could picture his clenched jaw, how he'd pace his sleek office, expecting me to cave. Instead, I leaned back on my couch, staring at the loan confirmation on my screen. The bank's holding it up, I lied, my voice calm. 3 days. I've got the supplier covered. He grumbled but bought at his arrogance, closing his eyes to my shift. I hung up a smirk, tugging at my lips. He had no idea I'd already started dismantling his empire. Lisa texted confirming the trust was ironclad. No way Ethan could touch the $3 million. She also sent a draft NDA for poaching Ethan's clients legally, a move I'd planned for tomorrow. Dr. Chen's warning echoed, but the fire in my chest burned brighter. Sophia Bennett, Ethan's secretary, was part of this too. I remembered her at that company happy hour, her NYU grad charm masking a ruthless ambition. She'd seen me as the weak link, the girlfriend funding Ethan's dreams while she angled for his heart and company. I wasn't just fighting Ethan, I was up against her too. As I closed my laptop, the Manhattan skyline glowed through my window, a reminder of the city I'd conquer. This wasn't just defiance, it was the start of my revenge. The humid New York City air clung to my skin as I stepped off the subway at 34th Street, the Midtown skyline looming like a challenge. It was June 16, 2023, a day after my rebirth, and I was headed to Parker Innovation's sleek Manhattan office. My goal wasn't confrontation, not yet, but to gather client files that could jumpstart my firm, Thompson Solutions. Ethan Parker, my ex-boyfriend who'd betrayed me for his secretary Sophia Bennett, thought he still had me under his thumb. He was wrong. Thanks to my lawyer Lisa Nguyen, the $3 million loan I'd taken out to save his startup was safe in a trust. But walking into his office meant facing him, Sophia, and the ghosts of my past life, where I'd died in an alley after his betrayal. The elevator dinged to the 20th floor, and I stepped into the open-plan office, all glass walls and overpriced coffee machines. My desk, tucked in a corner by a window with a sliver of Hudson River view, was my anchor here for 3 years. It was a mess, piled with Sophia's glossy magazines, a glittery phone case, and a half-empty latte cup. She stood leaning against it, her auburn hair swept into a polished bun, her designer heels clicking as she laughed with a coworker. "Oh, Emily," she said, spotting me, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I hope you don't mind. This desk is closer to Ethan's office, which is more convenient for work." Her smile was a blade, and I saw her game. Fresh from NYU's business school, Sophia wasn't just Ethan's arm candy. She was ambitious, clawing for a C-suite role, and I was the obstacle she'd sized up from day one. At a company happy hour months ago, she'd grilled me about my role, her eyes narrowing when I mentioned closing deals for Ethan. She wanted his spotlight, and I was in her way. I set my bag down, knocking her latte cup to the floor. It splattered, and her smile faltered. "Oops," I said, sitting in my chair. "You know the desk by the restroom is even closer to Ethan's office. Why don't you try that?" The office went quiet, co-workers glancing over, sensing a storm. Sophia's face flushed, but she kept her composure, playing the innocent card. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I didn't mean to upset you. Ethan just thought this spot made sense for me." Her words were a performance, but her eyes betrayed her a flicker of triumph, knowing she had Ethan's favor. Before I could respond, Ethan stormed out of his corner office, his tailored suit pristine but his face twisted with irritation. "What the hell, Emily?" he barked, grabbing my arm. "The manager told you to switch desks. Don't make a scene." His grip tightened, a move that used to make me shrink. In my past life, I'd have apologized, moved my things, begged for his approval. Not now. I yanked my arm free, smoothing my sleeve, and met his gaze. "I'm not your doormat anymore, Ethan." His eyes widened, unused to defiance. The coworkers whispered, and Sophia stepped closer, her voice soft but barbed. "Let's not fight, Emily. It's just a desk." I ignored her, grabbed a stack of client files from my drawer contracts I'd secured, and closed deals and stuffed them into my bag. "Keep it," I said, standing. "I won't be here much longer." As I turned to leave, Ethan's voice followed, low and threatening. "You're testing me, Emily. Don't forget who's in charge." I didn't look back, but my heart pounded with fear and exhilaration. Sophia's ambition, Ethan's arrogance, they were blind to the trap I was setting. Back in my Brooklyn apartment, I called Lisa. "I've got the files," I told her. "Let's start moving clients to my firm." She laughed, a fierce edge to it. "You're playing chess while they're playing checkers." However, Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, wasn't as thrilled when I called her later. "You're walking a tightrope, Emily," she said. "This anger, it's justified, but it could consume you." What happens when you win? I didn't have an answer, not yet. The memory of that alley, the mugger's knives, Ethan's smirk as he dismissed my death, it fueled me. I wasn't just reclaiming my desk or my files, I was reclaiming my life, and Sophia's smug face was just the first target. The next morning, June 17th, 2023, I sat in a cozy Flatiron cafe, the aroma of espresso grounding me as I met Marco Delgado, my firm's key supplier. Thompson Solutions, my 20-employee consulting company, had worked with Marco for years, delivering software solutions for his logistics firm. Over a latte, I pitched redirecting a $500,000 contract from Parker Innovations to my company. Ethan's startup is overleveraged, I said, keeping my tone steady. Their one missed payment from collapse my firm's stable, Marco. You know I deliver. He sipped his coffee, eyes thoughtful. You've always been solid, Emily, but this is a significant shift. Why now? I leaned in, choosing my words carefully. I'm done propping up Ethan's ego. My company's ready to lead. Marco nodded, trusting our history, and agreed to draft a new contract by Monday. Step 1 was in motion. Back at my Brooklyn apartment, my phone buzzed with Ethan's texts from a new number. Buy me the Tesla I showed you. It's for client meetings. Do it, and I'll forgive you for yesterday. I laughed, deleting the message. In my past life, I'd have scrambled to please him, maxing out credit cards for his whims. Now I saw his demands for what they were, desperate grabs for control. I called Lisa and Gwen, my lawyer, who was finalizing NDAs to poach Ethan's clients legally. She said, "We've got 3 ready to jump," her voice crackling with excitement. "They trust you, not him. Signatures by next week." I smiled, picturing Ethan's face when he realized his client list was shrinking. But Dr. Sarah Chen's warning from our last session echoed, "Revenge feels good now, but it's a heavy weight. What's your endgame, Emily?" The nightmares hadn't stopped. Flashes of the alley, the stairwell, my body left to rot. I told her I needed justice first, then I'd find peace. I opened my laptop and reviewed Parker Innovations' financials from the files I'd grabbed. Ethan's company was a house of cards, overextended loans, a board skeptical of his leadership, and a real estate tech platform, a flagship project built on shaky deals. I knew from my past life that it would implode due to faulty data integrations costing investors millions. I could accelerate that collapse. I emailed Marco again, asking him to delay a software delivery to Ethan's project, citing technical concerns. It was a lie, but it would spook Ethan's investors. Meanwhile, I reached out to Mia Carter, a junior staffer at Parker Innovations who'd always been kind to me. "You still at the office?" I texted. "Need a favor," Mia replied instantly. "Anything, Emily?" "Ethan's been a jerk. I asked her to monitor Sophia's moves, especially any client meetings." Mia agreed, promising updates. By evening, I treated myself to a spa session in Williamsburg, letting the tension of the past days melt away under a masseuse's hands. But the calm didn't last. Ethan called again, his voice tight. "Emily, the suppliers stall. Fix it or you're out of the company for good." I suppressed a laugh, feigning concern. "I'll talk to them, Ethan. However, the bank still holds the $3 million for 3 more days." He grumbled, buying the excuse, too arrogant to suspect sabotage. I hung up, my mind racing. Sophia was the wild card. I'd seen her charming clients with her polished smile at that happy hour, but I knew her type, hungry for power, using Ethan as a stepping stone. She'd push him to cut me out completely, maybe even take my place in boardroom deals. I needed to stay one step ahead. The city's pulse matched mine as I walked home under Brooklyn's streetlights. Thompson Solutions was my lifeline, built from years of hustle after the orphanage. I'd neglected it for Ethan, but now it was my weapon. With Marco's contract, Lisa's NDAs, and Mia's intel, I was weaving a net around Ethan and Sophia. The alley's shadow lingered, knives concrete, Ethan's cold. What a shame, but it didn't paralyze me. It fueled me. This wasn't just about saving my company. It was about making them pay for every moment they thought they'd won. The June sun dipped below the Manhattan skyline, casting long shadows across my Brooklyn apartment as I sat on my laptop staring at the client files I'd swiped from Parker Innovations. It was June 18th, 2023, 3 days into my reborn life, and I was weaving a web to trap Ethan Parker and his secretary-turned-fiancée, Sophia Bennett. Thanks to my lawyer, Lisa and Gwen, the $3 million loan I'd taken out to save his startup was locked in a trust untouchable. But the weight of my past life pressed against me, memories of that alley, the mugger's knives, my skull cracking on concrete, Ethan's cold. What a shame as he dismissed my death. Nightmares woke me nightly, my heart racing, the alley's damp stench lingering. I called Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, whose voice was a steady anchor over the phone. "Emily, This revenge, it's consuming you, she warned. You're justified, but will it heal you? I didn't know. All I knew was the fire in my chest urging me to make them pay. I headed to Parker Innovation's Midtown office, my bag heavy with purpose. I needed more project files to poach clients for my firm's Thompson Solutions, but I had to play the part of the loyal girlfriend to avoid suspicion. The office buzzed with chatter as I stepped off the elevator, and Sophia was perched at my old desk flaunting a ruby necklace that glinted against her pale neck. Ethan picked this up for me, she said, her voice syrupy, catching my eye, a reward for my work on the real estate project. I asked if he got one for you, Emily, but he said it was just for me. Her smile was a taunt, her ambition clear. She wasn't just stealing Ethan, she was staking her claim as the company's new star. Coworkers nearby giggled, whispering about Ethan browsing engagement rings. Big plans for Sophia, one smirked, eyeing me with pity. In my past life, I'd have crumbled, begged Ethan for reassurance. Now I saw an opportunity. I stepped closer, feigning jealousy, and yanked the necklace from Sophia's neck. The chain snapped, leaving a red mark on her skin. She gasped, and the office went silent, all eyes on us. Ethan stormed out of his office, his face red. "Emily, what the hell?" he shouted, snatching the pendant from my hand. "Apologize to Sophia, or you're done here." His grip on my arm was tight, a familiar control tactic. I let tears well up my voice, trembling for effect. "I just thought it was pretty, Ethan. You've never given me anything like that, not in 3 years." The co-workers' smirks faded, their glances shifting between us. I was officially his girlfriend, and my words cracked their narrative. Sophia's face twitched, her innocent act faltering. Ethan, caught off guard, stammered, "Fix the necklace by tonight, Emily, or else." He stormed off, Sophia trailing him, clutching the pendant. I slipped into my chair, pretending to organize my desk while pocketing a USB drive with project files, contracts, client contacts, and financials I'd use to rebuild my firm. The necklace stunt wasn't just petty. It bought me time keeping Ethan and Sophia distracted while I worked. Back home, I called Lisa. "Got the files," I said. "Can we use them to lock in clients?" She laughed. "You're ruthless, Em. I'll draft transfer agreements tomorrow." But Dr. Chen's voice haunted me as I lay in bed, the alley flashing in my mind. "What's your endgame?" she'd asked. I wanted Ethan and Sophia to feel the betrayal I'd felt, but the nightmares reminded me of the cost. I pushed them down, focusing on the USB drive. Sophia's smug face, Ethan's arrogance, they'd built their castle on my sacrifices. I'd tear it down brick by brick. The morning of June 19th, 2023, found me in my Brooklyn apartment sipping coffee as I reviewed the project files from Parker Innovations. My firm, Thompson Solutions, was gaining traction with a $500,000 contract redirected from Ethan's company, thanks to my supplier, Marco Delgado. The $3 million loan I'd taken out to save Ethan's startup remained safe in a trust, and I was quietly poaching his clients with NDAs drafted by my lawyer, Lisa Nguyen. But the real weapon was Ethan's flagship project, a real estate tech platform hyped as the next big thing. I knew from my past life it was doomed, built on faulty data integrations that would crash, costing investors millions. I could make that crash happen sooner. I met Marco at a Flatiron diner, the clatter of plates a backdrop to our talk. I said to delay the software delivery to Ethan's project, sliding him a USB with doctored specs. "Tell him it's a compatibility issue." Marco raised an eyebrow but nodded. "You're playing dirty, Emily. I'm in." His trust in me, built over years, was my edge. I emailed 3 of Ethan's top clients back at my laptop who offered better terms through Thompson Solutions. 2 replied within hours, eager to jump ship, citing my track record over Ethan's shaky promises. Lisa called to confirm that the NDAs had been signed. "You're bleeding him dry," she said, a grin in her voice. But Dr. Sarah Chen's words from our last session gnawed at me. Revenge could trap you in that alley forever. The nightmares hadn't stopped, knives glinting my body, crumpling Ethan's smirk. I shook them off. Justice first, healing later. Ethan's call came at noon, his voice panicked. "Emily, the supplier's stalling and the board's freaking out. Fix it and transfer the $3 million. The real estate project needs it." I saw my chance. The bank still held the funds, so I lied and then pivoted. But there's a $2 million commercial loan with low rates. It could fund the project now. Knowing he'd take the bait, I emailed him a fake rate sheet. In my past life, this project's collapse due to faulty integrations causing property mismanagement had tanked his stock. I'd make sure it happened again on my terms. Ethan rushed to the bank that afternoon, signing the $2 million loan himself since I held no legal title in his company. His arrogance blinded him. He didn't suspect I'd orchestrated the supplier delay. I visited Parker Innovations that evening, playing the dutiful girlfriend to avoid suspicion. Sophia was at my old desk smirking as she typed. "Ethan's stressed," she said, her tone mocking. "You're not helping Emily. Maybe he'd trust you more if you weren't so distracted." Her ambition was bare now. She wanted my role, my influence, Ethan's ring. I ignored her, grabbing more files under the guise of organizing. Mia Carter, the junior staffer feeding me intel, slipped me a note. "Sophia's meeting clients tonight. Be careful." I nodded, grateful for her loyalty. Back home, I called Dr. Chen, my voice shaking. "I'm winning, but the nightmares, they're worse." She sighed. "You're carrying that alley, Emily. Let it go or it'll bury you." I hung up and the files spread before me. Ethan's loan, Sophia's schemes, the doomed project I'd set the trap. Now I just had to wait for it to spring. The late June sun sank behind Brooklyn's brownstones, painting my apartment in shades of amber as I sat at my kitchen table laptop open on June 20th, 2023. My firm, Thompson Solutions, was thriving, having poached 3 major clients from Parker Innovations, with NDAs secured by my lawyer, Lisa Nguyen. I'd redirected a $500,000 contract to my company through my supplier, Marco Delgado. I tricked Ethan Parker into signing a $2 million loan for his doomed real estate tech project, knowing it would collapse due to faulty data integrations. The $3 million loan I'd taken to save his startup remained safe in a trust untouchable by him. But the nightmares of my past life, Mugger's knives, the alley's cold concrete, Ethan's smirk as he dismissed my death, still haunted me. Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, had warned me that revenge could trap me in that pain, but the fire in my chest burned brighter than her words. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, his words stark and final. "We're done, Emily. I need an independent woman who supports my career, not one who plays games. Sophia's the future." My heart didn't break, it hardened. In my past life, I'd have begged, flooded his phone with apologies. Now I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet apartment. He thought he could discard me again, just as he had when he announced his engagement to Sophia Bennett on Instagram, leaving me to die in that alley. I typed a reply, my fingers steady. "When's the $3 million repayment, Ethan?" No response. I called only to find he'd blocked me. Typical. He assumed I'd wired the money in my past life's blind devotion, never suspecting I'd kept it. I leaned back, sipping coffee, when my phone rang again. Mia Carter, the junior staffer at Parker Innovations, had been feeding me intel. "Emily, you okay?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. "Ethan and Sophia just posted about their engagement on the company's social media. They're getting their marriage license on Monday." I chuckled, surprising myself. "Good for them," I said. "Let me know what else they're up to." Mia hesitated. "They act like you never existed, but I've got your back. You deserve better." Her loyalty warmed me, a reminder I wasn't alone. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. Their engagement wasn't a setback, it was a gift. A marriage would tie Sophia to Ethan's debts, including that $2 million loan. They'd fall together. I opened LinkedIn and drafted a post announcing Thompson Solutions' new partnership with Marco's logistics firm. Excited to deliver cutting-edge software solutions, I wrote subtly, noting we'd taken over Parker Innovations' contract due to financial concerns. I hit post, watching the likes roll in from industry contacts. By morning, Parker Innovations stock dipped 10%, whispers of instability spreading. My firm's shares, listed on a small exchange, climbed 15%. I celebrated with a spa day in Williamsburg, the masseuse's hands easing the tension in my shoulders. But Dr. Chen's voice lingered. "What's your endgame, Emily?" The alley flashed in my mind, my body swollen in rainwater, Ethan's cold. What a shame. I pushed it down, focusing on the victory. Ethan thought he'd won by dumping me for Sophia. He had no idea I'd already turned his empire against him. Back home, I called Lisa. "The LinkedIn post worked," I said. "Ethan's losing ground." She laughed. "You're a force, Em. Next, we lock in those clients permanently." I nodded, but a flicker of doubt crept in. Sophia was no innocent bystander. At that company happy hour months ago, her NYU grad charm had masked a ruthless ambition. She'd grilled me about my deals, her eyes calculating, seeing me as the girlfriend to displace. Now she was meeting clients behind Ethan's back, angling for her power. I texted Mia. "Any client meetings on Sophia's calendar?" Mia replied. "2 tomorrow. Big ones. She's pushing Ethan to cut you out completely." I smirked. Let her try. The trap was set, and their engagement was the final piece. I poured a glass of wine, the city's skyline glittering outside. Ethan and Sophia thought they were untouchable. I'd show them how it felt to fall. The first week of July 2023 was electric with tension in New York City. My firm Thompson Solutions was soaring with 3 major clients signed and a $500,000 contract secured through my supplier, Marco Delgado. I'd outmaneuvered Ethan Parker, my ex-boyfriend, by keeping the $3 million loan I'd taken out for his startup, Parker Innovations, in a trust and tricking him into a $2 million loan for a real estate tech project I knew would fail. From my past life, I remembered its collapse. Faulty data integrations caused property mismanagement, leading to a construction disaster that tanked Ethan's stock. I'd accelerated that disaster by delaying Marco's software delivery, spooking investors. But the emotional toll lingered. Nightmares of the alley where I'd dyed muggers' knives concrete. Ethan's dismissive smirk woke me nightly. Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, urged me to let go, but I needed Ethan and Sophia Bennett, his fiancée, to feel my pain first. On July 3rd, news broke the real estate project imploded. A Brooklyn development site mismanaged by Ethan's platform collapsed due to faulty integrations, killing 2 workers and injuring 5. Social media erupted with outrage, and hashtags like #JusticeForWorkers were trending. I sat in my Brooklyn apartment scrolling Twitter, watching protesters picket Parker Innovations' Midtown office with banners demanding accountability. Ethan, a major investor, was named in the news. His stock plummeted 20% overnight. I opened my laptop and posted a Twitter thread, my fingers trembling with purpose. For 3 years, I built Parker Innovations, funding it with my savings, loans, and life. Ethan Parker coerced me into a 3M loan, then dumped me for Sophia Bennett. Here's the truth. I attached screenshots, texts of Ethan demanding money, emails proving I closed his deals, and the trust protecting the 3M. The thread went viral, retweets flooding and public opinion flipping. Ethan's a fraud, one user wrote. Emily's the real deal, said another. I leaned back, sipping wine from my new Manhattan loft, the skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd sold my old apartment, erasing Ethan's traces. Lisa Nguyen, my lawyer, called ecstatic. Your thread's a hit, Em. Clients are begging to work with us. Thompson Solutions shares hit a trading limit, up 25%. But Mia Carter, my ally at Parker Innovations, texted a warning. Ethan and Sophia are freaking out. They're married now, got the license yesterday. Banks are demanding the $2 million loan repayment. I smiled. Their marriage made Sophia jointly liable for the debt. Perfect. I'd planned for this, knowing Ethan's arrogance would close his eyes to the trap. Banks froze Parker Innovations accounts the next day, citing the project's failure. Protesters grew louder, news outlets digging into Ethan's mismanagement. I learned from Mia that Sophia was scrambling to save her image, meeting clients to pin the blame on Ethan. Her ambition, evident since that happy hour where she'd sized me up as competition, was unraveling. She'd wanted to be the company's star, but now she was tied to its ruin. I called Dr. Chen, my voice steady despite the nightmares. I did it, I said. They're falling. She sighed. You've won, Emily, but at what cost? That alley's still in you. I hung up the images, flashing knives rain Ethan's. What a shame. I pushed them down, focusing on the victory. Ethan and Sophia thought they could erase me. Now they were erased, drowning in debt and public scorn. The July heat hung heavy over New York City, the air thick with humidity, as I stood in my new Manhattan loft, gazing at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was July 10th, 2023, a week after the real estate tech project at Parker Innovations imploded, killing 2 workers and tanking Ethan Parker's stock by 20%. My firm, Thompson Solutions, was soaring with shares up 25%, and new clients flooding in after my viral Twitter thread exposed Ethan's coercion and betrayal. The $3 million loan I'd taken out to save his startup remained safe in a trust, and the $2 million loan I'd tricked him into signing was now his and his new wife, Sophia Bennett's, joint liability. The nightmares of my past life's death, muggers' knives, the alley's concrete, Ethan's cold. What a shame still woke me, but my resolve held firm. Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, warned that revenge could chain me to that pain, but I wasn't done yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia Carter, my ally at Parker Innovations. Ethan's a mess. He's outside your office now, begging to see you. I glanced out the window, spotting him below on the Tribeca Street, his once crisp suit, wrinkled eyes, bloodshot. He looked like a man who'd aged a decade in days. I took the elevator down, steeling myself. Ethan rushed toward me as I stepped outside, dropping to his knees on the sidewalk and grabbing my hand. Emily, I need you, he pleaded, voice cracking. Cover the $2 million debt. Your company's killing it. I'll divorce Sophia and marry you. We can start over, just us. His desperation was pathetic, a far cry from the smug coder who'd discarded me for Sophia. I stared down at him, the alley flashing in my mind, my body swollen in rainwater, his smirk as he planned his honeymoon. You married Sophia, I said, raising an eyebrow. Perfect. You two can pay the debt together. His face crumpled, but he clung tighter. She tricked me, Emily. I never loved her, not even on our wedding day. I'll divorce her today. Please help me. His tears were real, but they didn't move me. I yanked my hand free, my voice cold. You made your choice, Ethan. Live with it. I turned and returned to my office, his shouts fading behind me. Security blocked him at the door, and I watched from my office window as he slumped away, limping, slightly defeated. Mia texted later with gossip Sophia's trying to jump ship. She's flirting with some hedge fund guy, but Ethan caught her. They had a huge fight, cops were called. I learned the details from a news alert. Ethan, enraged by Sophia's betrayal, had attacked her in their Upper East Side apartment, throwing her phone and bruising her arm. She called 911, and the police hauled them both to the station. Since they were married, it was deemed a domestic dispute, and after a brief mediation, they were sent home. But the damage was done. Debt collectors, smelling blood, showed up the next day. Ethan couldn't pay the $2 million, and Sophia, legally tied to the debt, was cornered. Mia reported that Sophia was forced into a shady nightclub job to cover payments, and her NYU grad ambition was reduced to desperation. Ethan, meanwhile, took a beating from a loan shark, his leg broken, his pride shattered. I called Lisa Nguyen, my lawyer, to update her. They're imploding, I said, a mix of triumph and unease in my voice. You've played this perfectly, Lisa replied. Your company's untouchable now. But Dr. Chen's words echoed as I hung up. Will this heal you, Emily? The nightmares hadn't stopped, and though I'd won, a hollow ache lingered. Sophia's motives were more apparent now. She'd used Ethan to climb just as he'd used me, but her fall was no accident. I'd orchestrated it, from the supplier delays to the viral thread. As I stood in my loft, the city's lights pulsing below, I felt the weight of my choices. Ethan and Sophia were broken, but I needed to ensure they never rose again. One final move awaited, and I was ready to make it. 3 years later, in July 2026, I stood on the balcony of my Tribeca penthouse, the New York City skyline glittering under a summer moon. Thompson Solutions had gone public, growing from 20 employees to 300, with offices in Manhattan and contracts across the globe. I'd paid off the $3 million loan, sold the Brooklyn apartment I'd shared with Ethan Parker, and built a life I'd once only dreamed of. My journey from a Queens orphanage, bullied alone, craving a family, felt like another lifetime. But the scars of my past life, where I died in an alley after Ethan's betrayal, lingered in nightmares. Dr. Sarah Chen, my therapist, had helped me face them through revenge and rebuilding myself. As I sipped champagne tonight, I was ready to close that chapter. My company's success wasn't luck. After exposing Ethan's fraud with my viral Twitter thread in 2023, I locked in clients with Lisa Nguyen's legal finesse, leveraging my reputation from years of hustle. Parker Innovations was a ghost now. Its stock was worthless and its offices were shuttered. Ethan and Sophia, bound by marriage and debt, had crumbled. Mia Carter, my ally from their staff, texted updates. Ethan was scraping by, doing odd jobs, his leg still limping from that loan shark's beating. Sophia, her ambition crushed, worked nights at a dive bar dodging creditors. Their marriage had imploded, public fights, police calls, mutual betrayal. I'd orchestrated their fall, from supplier delays to that $2 million loan. But Dr. Chen's question haunted me. Did it heal you, Emily? Not entirely, but it had freed me. I stepped out into Times Square that evening, the neon chaos contrasting with my calm. I'd planned a spa night with Lisa and Mia, celebrating our latest deal, a $10 million contract with a tech giant. As I crossed 42nd Street, a figure caught my eye. Ethan, hunched in a faded t-shirt, handing out flyers for a discount gym. The man who'd once refused anything but designer suits looked broken, his eyes avoiding the crowd. He shuffled toward me, offering a flyer without looking up. I took it, my voice flat. Wearing something this cheap, Ethan, don't you feel embarrassed? He froze, his gaze snapping to mine. Shame flickered across his face, and he mumbled, Emily, before limping away, nearly tripping hastily. I tossed the flyer into a trash can, the memory of his "what a shame" echoing from that alley. It didn't sting anymore, just a faint echo of a life I'd left behind. Back at the spa, Lisa raised a glass. To you, Em. You built an empire from ashes. Mia grinned, adding, and left a toxic jerk in the dust. We laughed, the warmth of their friendship grounding me. Later in a session with Dr. Chen, I reflected on my journey. I thought revenge would fix me, I admitted, but it was forgiving myself for trusting him for losing myself that did. She nodded. You're not that girl from the orphanage anymore. You're enough. I'd traveled to Paris, dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, and bought jewelry I'd once denied myself, but the real triumph was peace, knowing I'd never waste my life on someone like Ethan again. The city's pulse matched my own as I returned to my penthouse. The orphanage's cold walls, Ethan's betrayal, and the alley's darkness had shaped me, but they didn't define me. I was Emily Thompson, a survivor and builder who was free. I poured another glass of champagne, toasting to a life reclaimed one I'd live for myself, surrounded by those who truly saw me.